I'm your host, Sheldon Alexander, and we got something a little bit different today. We got a bonus pod where we're breaking down the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we brought out the big guns to help us out as we deep dive through each and every playoff series to give you the goodness to try to help you make some money. So I'll keep this going here, and I'll stick with you, Michael. Bruins, Hurricanes. Series price split right there, -110 on either side. Boston, though, in game one at +100, Carolina -120. This is a very interesting series for a lot of different reasons, but how are you looking at this from a betting angle?
I love the Bruins. I like them across the board. I like them as a Stanley Cup future. They're 20-1 at some places still. That was a number I got in February. There's a weird phenomenon with the Bruins was they got off to a not a great start. They were good, but because in the Atlantic Division, the Maple Leafs, the Panthers, and the Lightning just shot out of a cannon, and the Bruins were basically the fourth place team all season long, people weren't really paying attention to them. In fact, people were asking questions, what's wrong with the Bruins, even though they were clearly going to make the playoffs and they were going to be fine. And then there were questions about their goaltending. Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark as a tandem. Tuukka Rask came back, tried to come back from an injury. It didn't work out. They go back with Swayman and Ullmark. And since Rask came back and then retired again, Linus Ullmark has been good. I think, that kind of cloud of uncertainty hanging over that tandem's head maybe affected them. And if you look at their underlying numbers, they're the same Bruins that we've seen for the past 6-7 years. And those same Bruins usually go into the playoffs at like 11-1, 8-1, whatever. They're a defensive dynamo, leading the league in expected goals against, leading the league in high dangerous chances against at 5-on-5. So they're one of a few teams that can really handle this Carolina onslaught at 5-on-5. And I think, I make the Bruins a favorite here, even without home ice advantage, because the goaltending is a wash with Freddie Anderson hurt for the Hurricanes, Linus Ullmark, Antti Raanta. Like if you want to, like Matt was saying with semantics, if you want to try to say, Antti Raanta is going to be a much better goalie than Linus Ullmark, you might be right, like in the series, but we don't know. We don't know anything about these two goalies and how they're going to handle themselves in the series. I do know that the more likely scenario is the Bruins will make Linus Ullmark's job a little easier than the Hurricanes will for Antti Raanta or the rookie Kochetkov if he has to play. So I think we're getting the same price or the same Bruins that we usually get going into the playoffs at double the price. So I like Boston in the series. I like Boston Stanley Cup future. And I also like, if you want, Patrice Bergeron 60-1 to win the Conn Smythe, but David Pasternak's around 50-1, Charlie McAvoy's 100-1. I think if you want to sprinkle one of those guys to put along with the ride on the future, it's a great value. And this Boston team, they have a good path too, right? They finished in probably the best spot outside of winning the Atlantic Division, which you can make maybe winning the Atlantic Division. Like you can still make the argument was not as rewarded as what the Bruins got, right? They're going to play in the Metro against three teams. Their potential opponents are three teams that Boston is better than. So I think the Bruins really caught a break. And I just like how everything's kind of lining up for them heading into the tournament.
I couldn't agree more with every single word that Michael said there. Like, I'm just like checking off notes over here, right? To add to that really is I have Bruins as being 20% better than average after the All-Star break, right? And for me, a lot of times you go, okay, what have you done for me lately, right? Post All-Star break, what's your record coming into the playoffs, blah, 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 blah. How well, what is your form, right? How well are you playing come into the playoffs? This year, more than any other year ever, I put basically all of my eggs into the after All-Star break basket. And the reason for that is, and Michael can tell you, before the All-Star break, betting on the NHL was a total farce, right? You had the COVID testing and guys are in and out of the lineups and I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's going on. There's -500 like favorites because 3 guys on the underdog are out. And we're just like, I don't know how to even add that up. I don't even know how to value any of these teams when half of their players or some of their good players or their goaltenders out, that sort of thing. And so I'm taking a lot of before the All-Star break and I am throwing that out. And you're saying like, well, why the All-Star break? Why is that the line of demarcation? Well, the reason is they stopped testing basically at the All-Star break, right? They pulled back on the testing big time. And we actually had a legitimate season from the All-Star break onward. And so whether the Bruins, that they were more affected than anybody else doesn't really matter. The point is that after the All-Star break, they were, as Michael mentioned, the team of old. And that's a team, we talk a lot about branding, and some of these teams who get credit for being who they are, for the logo on the front of their jersey. For whatever reason, Boston just doesn't seem to be getting that the way that they normally do. Normally you have to make excuses on why Boston's going to lose, and then you bet against them, and then you're just tortured by Brad Marchand, just torturing the goaltender. And so, yeah, they're going to make it easier on their own goaltender. You know what they're also not going to make it easy on? Whoever's in net for Carolina. And Carolina doesn't have the defense. Dougie Hamilton's gone, et cetera. They don't have the defensive size that's going to be able to push these guys away. And so we saw it last year. Now the Bruins ended up getting knocked off by Michael's Islanders, but the Taylor Hall edition last year was big. That boosted their ratings up quite a bit. And that's been the same thing post All-Star break, right? And so I put so much more emphasis on the post All-Star break stuff. I've got Boston to win the series. I'm with Michael as far as the futures are concerned. Boston -1.5 in the series handicap is +170. That is wild, given the fact that a game 6 would happen in Boston. By the way, this Boston team didn't even really take advantage of their home ice advantage, right? You say, okay, give me 3 teams who have an over and above home ice advantage in the NHL. You're probably going to list Boston. They didn't have that much better of a record at home and then they did on the road, right? This is a team at current status who's going to be incredibly difficult to beat at home. So I have them -1.5. I have Boston 14-1 to sweep the Hurricanes. Now that might just come into play here on these first 2 games without Frederik Andersen for Carolina. If Boston hops on Carolina and beats them 2 times on the road and has a 2-0 lead headed back to Boston, you're going to be thrilled that you have 14-1 on the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, that's going to be a great series in Boston. I mean, Boston primed for another playoff run. Where have we seen that before? That never happens, right?